So reading this post right here raised my blood pressure. Reading this post right here spiked my cortisol. Reading this post right here made me mauled so hard. And it was only a matter of time until this shit happened. It was only a matter of time until people started complaining about the rewards from variants and criterion dungeons. And this is a popular post, but boy, do I disagree with it. And let me go ahead and read this right here. This poster says, variant is kind of okay. I'm disappointed that there's not some sort of sync for potsherds, but at least there's a cool reward for exhausting all the different pathways. Criterion, though, a kinda shitty mount, an orchestration role, and some adventure plate stuff? I wanted a decent reason to grind these out, and I'm pretty disappointed. I'll clear them for the sake of clearing. They are fun content, but the rewards here are super lacking for anyone besides Mount Completionists. Okay. All right, let's talk about this. So, this poster here seems to be very clearly discontented that they are going to be getting cosmetic rewards and, orchestration roles and other cosmetics for actually going ahead and doing the content. And by their own admission, they say here that it is fun content, but I need that cherry on top. It's not good enough that the content is fun. No, I need to be rewarded. I need my dopamine spike, wahoo, ding, ding, at the very end of doing this content. It's not enough for the content to just be good content. Why am I so upset about this? The reason why I'm so upset about this is because I think that games like this, MMOs like this exist. They're the vast majority of MMOs, and I think there are inherent design flaws with these MMOs. And I am an ex World of Warcraft player. So in World of Warcraft, that game has created a situation where the gameplay loops and the game systems are so dependent on the reward structures and the reward loops and the gambling mechanics when it comes to RNG with the gear loops to keep people playing the game, to keep people strung along. And that comes at the expense of the gameplay. Because as time goes on, any game you play, it doesn't matter what the game is, starts to get repetitive. No matter how good the gameplay is, it starts to get redundant. And if the gameplay and the game systems are trying to incentivize your monkey brain, trying to incentivize the rat in the laboratory part of our brains to go ahead and keep doing this content despite it no longer being fun, despite it starting to feel kind of stale, just for the rewards. That's how you leave burnt out, and that's why World of Warcraft went down the shithole it went down, right? And here we are. Here we are as players, asking Square Enix to do the same thing that we're simultaneously bitching about Blizzard doing. Here we are. I said in another one of my videos, players are typically really good at understanding fundamental problems with a game. They are. This person's concerns here are valid. Maybe the mount isn't cool enough, right? Maybe the orchestration isn't cool enough. Maybe Square Enix needs to get more creative with rewards that they could tackle on and tag on to Criterion dungeons that are not going to put us in a, dopamine cycle reward loop, but are still gratifying. Sure. But if you scroll down here and you start reading some of these comments, you will notice a lot of people are going to start talking about gear and adding reward through gearing and making it an RNG cesspool like Diablo Immortal was, like World of Warcraft is, like, all of these loot boxy type games are. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read some of these comments. So Mage RRL responds, I think listening to both sides reveals the core issue. The game has a lack of repeatable battle content for those who actually want to play the game on their max level job. And it's true, and I say it in a lot of my videos, that there is often not a reason for you to go ahead and do content that you've already cleared, with some exceptions. The primary exception being ultimates. If you want to go ahead and clear ultimates, you're going to have to farm Savage, right? But if all you want to do is clear Savage and be on your merry way, adios until the next patch, You don't gotta go and repeat it over and over again. And what I think, gamers are not understanding here is that it doesn't matter how good the game is. Every game, if you play it enough times, you play it over and over and over again, will get stale. Will get stale. I use the analogy of food. I love steak. Steak is so good. But imagine if all I ate every single day was steak. And today I ate steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And tomorrow I eat steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I do that every day for 2 years. I guarantee you, by the end of those 2 years, I will be so sick of steak. I actually ran this experiment. I went on a carnivore diet where I only ate meat for a month. The first couple days were awesome. By day 30, I was so sick of meat, I never wanted to have meat again. I love meat, right? This is just the way that things go. And so this person saying they want repeatable content, right? Usually when players say that, they say that what they mean is they want more content, right? They want to go through, have a good experience, and continuously have more and more good experiences. But in any game, it doesn't matter what the game is, the rate of consumption of gamers is always going to outpace the rate of production by producers and by developers by a mile, by a long shot. It's not even close. This is not possible. And that's why Yoshi P says, go ahead and play other games. If you want that gear treadmill, you want to be on the gear treadmill, which is fine, by the way. That's also really, really fun for a short period of time. I don't mind being on a gear treadmill where my eye level goes from 100 to 103 to 107 to 110, and I'm doing the same content over and over and over again for a gear. I can do that for a month and a half before I get bored. It's fun for that month and a half. That's fine, right? And then I'll bounce off, go play other things until, I have my palate cleansed, then I'll go back and do that again, right? And there are games to do this. There are already games that exist where if that's what you want, you can go ahead and play them. But to add that to Square Enix's game design philosophy is trying to fit a circle peg into a square hole. So anyway, this poster then goes on to say, it's not that the content is bad. Players just wish there were more systems to keep them engaged. No, they don't. This is why a lot of us WoW X people left World of Warcraft. It's because of these systems. This is not something that we want, right? We do not want this. And it even exists already to some extent, like I said, with ultimates and clearing and farming Savage to do your ultimates. This gear treadmill already exists in the game for the people who want to do it. It's right here. Why are we complaining? Why are we complaining? They then go on to say, the way I see it, this is just two philosophies clashing. Mount rewards are enough to get people to do the content once, but it seems like a lot of them had hoped for something more tied to the rest of the game. I think Final Fantasy XIV is and has always been an incomparable to other MMOs in that regard. The game just doesn't work the same as those games in the end game. It's more like an RPG with online features and some hard fights slapped on top, which is not bad, but is drastically different from what other MMORPG players are used to. Correct. Absolutely correct. And this is one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, why Final Fantasy XIV is so successful to begin with. Because if it came in and it tried to copy the other MMOs, you know how many other MMOs came out since World of Warcraft that were deemed WoW clones and then failed? If something already exists and you want to have a successful product, you don't just make a copycat version of it, but worse. That's going to fail. But Final Fantasy is so successful for the reason that it innovated in a stale genre, a genre that we haven't had innovation in since around 2004. No real innovation. And because they're able to differentiate themselves from World of Warcraft, maybe they stood on the shoulder of giants and they're able to see further beyond. They learned a lot from World of Warcraft. The developers of Final Fantasy XIV played a lot of WoW Cataclysm to be able to create a Realm Reborn. And then after that, they innovated on top. And that's why they're so successful. Why would we take this formula and just start trying to copy what other people are doing and are having a hard time pulling off at that? World of Warcraft is having a hard time pulling off and had a hard time pulling off these really, really engaging systems that try to keep people playing for as long as possible. And so many players left the game that Blizzard is now reining it back. We do not want this. I mean, unironically, as, pompous as it sounded when J. Allen Brack said, you think you do, but you don't. In this case, I think it would apply. So anyway, the next comment here says, It's getting kind of embarrassing how afraid Square is of disrupting their gearing cycle. There's no good reason we cannot have an additional method to gain twines and such, especially from content that won't come out until 8+ weeks after the gear cycle began, and as hard as the Savage raid themselves. See, this comment I will agree with. If Square Enix went ahead and created new avenues and different ways of getting the same thing. This guy here is talking about twines, and there was a way to get twines from Savage, but also let's say from Criterion. That would be okay. I think that's fine because now that gives you more options. It's like if you want to do Criterions to do it, go ahead. If you want to do Savage to do it, go ahead. So I don't think this is a bad idea at all. Now, this guy says, I'm somewhat hopeful that better rewards will be added in the future because I think the design is interesting enough that a good reward is really all it needs. Yes. And, when people are having this concern, when people are saying that rewards are underwhelming, they're not wrong. They're not wrong about the problem. Players are good at identifying problems, but not solutions because they're not game designers. They don't do this for a living. So Square Enix, ought to look at something like this and think, yeah, okay, well, our rewards aren't good enough. If we go ahead and made it a gear grind, a gear treadmill, and tried to force people to do the same piece of content over and over and over and over again, that would be bad for our game. So how else can we incentivize people to go ahead and, have their cake and eat it too, be able to play the game, think the game is fun, think the gameplay is fun, but also get a good reward that is also, going to give us that dopamine hit too? How can we develop that in a way that doesn't ruin our game? And that's up to the game designers to figure out. That's what they get paid to do. So this guy says that said, I could see it being a sort of solo Palace of the Dead thing where the challenge is the main incentive. Correct. And, I like to use the example of Dark Souls. Who played Dark Souls 1 so they can get the gear? Anyone? Anyone played Dark Souls 1 so you can get, your BIS gear? No, that's not why people played Dark Souls 1. People played Dark Souls 1 for the experience, and by the time they were done with Dark Souls 1, they were passionate about the product. They left satisfied with passion and were excited for 2 and then 3, right? And then, maybe Sekiro and then Elden Ring. Maybe Bloodborne if you have, a PlayStation. And so you leave satisfied each time coming back for more. You leave satisfied coming back for more. But if you leave burnt out, you're not going to want to come back for more. You're not going to want to come back for more, right? And so the gameplay needs to be the primary thing. If you want to add rewards on top of it, sure. But you don't want the rewards to be the reason. Once you get in a situation when the rewards are the reason why people are playing your game, that's when you done fucked up. And I hope that doesn't become the case, right? And that's all I had to say for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.